Hey,
Hi, Helen. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Great. How was your?
Fly out from church,
What's that?
trying to thaw from church.
Oh, did you go to the outdoor service? Very cold. Yeah. Bev and I just took a walk, and yeah, it's a little bit warmer probably than when you were out, but it's still very cold.
Very. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving.
We did. We moved in the Tuesday before, and then we unpacked Wednesday and Thursday, and then had people over Thursday evening for supper. So they
Wow.
fixed the food, so that was nice. But we're very, very happy to be in a new house. Oh well, new to us. Yeah. So it's we haven't been in a house for a long time because we've been in a condo, and before that, when we were in Germany, we were in an apartment. And the place in Maine we bought a duplex, so it's not really a detached house. So it's kind of nice just having the privacy.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Glad you like it.
Yeah. I
There's Flo.
Flo's coming on.
Good morning.
Good
Hi, Flo.
morning, Flo. How are you?
Beg pardon? Huh.
Are you on the? Do you have a line across of stop video?
Yeah, mine's at the lower kind of left,
Yeah, mine is too.
and then you're muted, Flo. There she is. Well, can't see you, but
Now why
Yeah.
can't I see? What have I done?
are you on the video on the lower left? Does it say stop video?
Hi, Harriet.
Yes,
Okay, click on that.
I just did.
Huh.
Maybe, okay. I see my name.
Oh, very good.
Is your camera covered possibly?
Oh, that's it. I forgot to open the camera.
Ah,
Oh, I need to keep her.
So now you need to start your video again.
Okay, well, let me pull out and get the camera opened. Okay, now. Okay, now can you hear me?
we
Oh,
can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you fine, but we can't
Can
see.
you see me?
You need to do the video on the
There. Hi.
car.
Good
Yeehaw.
morning. Good morning to
Good
everybody.
morning.
Good
Hi.
morning, everybody.
Hi, Susan.
Susan
and
and
Bill.
Bill.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Cold.
That Thanksgiving message the vestry sent out was super neato.
Wasn't that great?
Yes. And did you see Flo and her cute Thanksgiving sweatshirt?
Oh, did you notice that?
Yes.
It was a wonderful.
That was
It
really
really was great.
It all went together so smoothly.
I don't
It
know
did.
whose
I thought
idea it was.
scary, but then I was like, oh, it's everybody. And we knew everybody almost.
And that's perfect to be able to see your vestry. I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, since we don't get to see anybody at church anymore.
Now, there were maybe
Hi,
21
Gloria.
there today.
I bet it was cold out there.
Freezing.
I thought about I watched at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we did too. So y'all were out in the parking lot?
Wow.
Wow. It's not a pretty day for that.
No,
Gloria.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Gloria.
Gloria.
Good, good. How is everybody?
Great.
Good.
Everybody have a good Thanksgiving?
Mm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
quiet, quiet.
Well, our time is upon us. Shall we go ahead and get started?
Sure.
I thought what we could do today, instead of like an opening prayer, is have an opening meditation. And there's something in the last chapter that I thought would be kind of neat to use. It's on page 218. And can I get two people to be readers? What we're going to do is read it through once, have a moment of silence, and then I'll tell the other person to read it again, and another moment of silence.
Are you gonna post
Mine's
it?
on my Kindle and I don't have a,
Oh, yeah, I can't post this one, but it's on page 218, and we'll read it out loud. Whoever the readers are. Anybody got it?
I've got a bit.
Okay, so Nancy, you'll be our first reader. Who else has got it? Harriet, can you be our second reader? So I'll be the kind of timekeeper, and when the silence is up, then I'll say Harriet, and then you can read it again the second time. So yeah, this is a
218. How many pages do y'all have? I have 3,198.
okay.
So,
Well, this is in the last chapter, and it's
Oh.
called "The Joy of Intimacy" is the chapter title. And this poem by Teresa of Avila is almost at the end of the last chapter. So if that helps at all.
yeah.
You got it? Okay, good.
Well,
So,
I mean, yeah, I'm there.
okay. So Nancy, could you read it for us?
Just these two words he spoke changed my life. Enjoy me. What a burden I thought I was to carry, a crucifix, as did he. Love once said to me, I know a song. Would you like to hear it? And laughter came from every brook in the street, and from every brick in the street, and from every pore in the sky. After a night of prayer, he changed my life when he sang, Enjoy me.
Okay, let's just take a moment to let that sink in a little bit, and then after the moment of silence, then Harriet will read it again the second time. Okay, Harriet, you want to read it again?
Just these two words he spoke changed my life. Enjoy me. What a burden I thought I was to carry, a crucifix, as did he. Love once said to me, I know a song. Would you like to hear it? And laughter came from every brick in the street and from every pore in the sky. After a night of prayer, he changed my life when he sang, Enjoy me.
Nice. I wanted to just start out with that little poem because what our author Anne Voskamp has been doing in The Thousand Gifts is providing a kind of a different way of spiritual growth that's, I think, quite different than what most of us were probably exposed to. Have any of you been reading about this book? Any critiques of it online?
No, but I would like to. I'd like to know more about her, and I just would like to pursue it.
Yeah, I did too. So I started Googling. I wanted to find out what kind of a church she was coming from and what some other folks were thinking about this book because it is, I mean, it's so powerful. But anyway, the things that popped up for my Google search, well, she's from Church of the Brethren, so that's a strong evangelical denomination. She comes from a Dutch background, so and she lives in Canada. And these are not necessarily the stuff that come together to form someone who's kind of a mystic. I think it's appropriate to say she is a modern day mystic.
Yes.
And that's been some of the critique on her in the online is many people who don't feel comfortable with the way that she experiences God in everything, and they claim that she's moving into a form of heresy called panentheism. And actually, panentheism is not a heresy. Pantheism has been, and that is that God is everything, or everything is God, if you will. But panentheism is just a way of seeing that God is participating in everything. And it sees God as the ground of being, that very being is just, I mean, we get our being from God. And so everything that is participates in God. It's not a heresy, it's pretty strong in the Christian tradition, but there are some folks who are very uncomfortable with it. The other thing is, as an evangelical, and by the way, I'm an evangelical as well. So I'm not speaking negatively about anybody here, but there are some evangelicals who get a little bit nervous about Catholic sounding words like Eucharist. In fact, there's some critique of her using the word Eucharist in these articles. She quotes what we would consider probably Catholic saints. Actually, I mean, the saints are Catholic in the best sense of the word. They're for all of us. But some of them get kind of upset. There's a little bit of Romophobia that still comes up in some of those critiques of her. But what I find so fascinating is here's this person who is not baked in an oven that is particularly friendly to mystics, and she has become one. And in I think, a powerful and refreshing way that really speaks to modern day Christians. So as we get through these last two chapters, we're taking note of something. And I just want to put it in kind of an analogy. Yeah,
Dave, when
yes.
you say the brethren, is it Church of the Brethren?
Church of the
Are
Brethren.
these Moravians?
I don't believe they are, but the Church of the Brethren, or United Brethren, came together several denominations, and I don't recall that the Moravians were part of that union.
The reason I'm asking, I grew up here in Temple, and I had a lot of friends from East Bell County. And when we were in elementary school, I remember a couple of girls that went to every Saturday morning. The families belonged to a church called the Czech Moravian Brethren Church. And I was just, and then Bob and I visited in Winston-Salem many, many years ago, which was a Moravian settlement in the 1700s, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, I was just wondering if this was the same, because the fact that, John Wesley, was so affected by the Moravians on the ship that he coming and going from Georgia, and the fact that they were celebrating during the terrible storm. Anyway, well, just curious.
That's a fantastic connection. That's really good, Flo.
I thought they were the descendants, basically, from Puritans. I read a historical article once, whatever happened to the Puritans.
Hmm.
And I thought that the Brethren Church was sort of I don't know the right term to use.
Oh, you're correct that the Brethren in New England were the people who eventually the Puritans became the Brethren, and they did unite. For those who became United Brethren, I think they united with Methodists. So, but I'm fascinated by the whole Moravian connection because that would explain the mysticism because it came from Count Zinzendorf in Moravia. And did you know that Dietrich Bonhoeffer's mom was from that spirituality as well? So he even got a taste of it. But definitely Wesley was the one who carried the Moravian experience of God, and that's what the mysticism is about. It's about actually experiencing God. It's moving God from head to heart. So Harriet, yes.
On the flap of her book, it says that she is from that she and her husband worship at the Mennonite Church on the countryside of southwestern Ontario. And then I wanted to, for Flo's benefit, it also says that she writes every day and that you can see what she's writing called, the website is www.aholyexperience.com. So you can keep up with her there.
Yeah.
That's, I think, at the very last page of the book, where it starts kindest friend, and it tells about 2 websites. So I'm not copying it down since I have it.
Okay, good. All right.
Thank
No
you, though.
problem.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
No, there is a Brethren church out in Zabzigville, and this area is very highly Czech. So there might be some ties to that. I don't know. I've never been to the church. It was hit by lightning last year, and it's under repair right now.
Yeah. So that would be
There's one right next to Luby's. It's now called the Cross Church or something. But
I think it's called Crossroads, right? No.
I think you're right, Harriet. I think it's Crossroads, and it's kind of at the top of Suicide Hill.
That's where Deborah Johnson's mother goes to church, or used to go to church.
Yes, when it was another name. That was
Right, when it was called the Brethren Church.
Was the Brethren Church, yeah.
Well, so this would be interesting to find out where this is happening in her to come together and to form this mysticism and this opening up to different types of spirituality than what we would normally associate with some churches. And it's certainly where she's taking some flack on the internet as well. But it's something that speaks, I think, so well to us as Episcopalians because we do embrace the entire spectrum of the church as opposed to cutting off parts of it because we want all the different voices to be there. So as an evangelical Episcopalian, I really want the progressives in my life because they nudge me into ways to go out into the world. And I really want the Anglo-Catholics in my life because they really teach me how to worship and really sense of awe. Here's a woman who is embracing the whole of the Christian spiritual tradition. And I think the effect is great. So I want to give you an analogy as we start out today. I was, 20 years old. I was in college, a Christian college, and there was this spelunking club. And they invited me to go on a spelunking tour. They said it'll be really fun. So off we headed to the hills of West Virginia. And this guy who was the leader of the group was really small. And I should have been warned at that point. And I'm not a big guy, but this guy was really small. So we got up real early. I don't know why. I mean, it's dark in the cave all the time. But we got up really early and we headed out to this hillside. And we looked around for the opening. And I kind of expected, something like a large opening with a nice sidewalk, maybe some lights on in there. But instead, he points to this tiny hole. I couldn't even tell it was an entrance. And he said, well, this is called the birth canal. Again, should have been warned. It was my stupid to go in there. And he said, if you really want to get the full effect, go in on your back so that you can really get the experience. Again, stupid me. I followed this. So I was in the middle of the group. The birth canal has this, I mean, it's horrible. Besides all these things crawling around in there and bat guano all over the place, but there were probably only 4 or 5 inches above my face. It was all rock above me. And I could almost stretch out my arms halfway. And we had to scoot along on our backs. And then there was this twist and turn. That's why they called it the birth canal. And then we got into the cave proper. Well, just about halfway through the canal, someone in front of me got stuck. And we were there immobilized for it seemed like a long, long time. And it felt like I had been buried alive in my mind. My brain was feeling like it was sweating with so much anxiety. Then we got inside and we could kind of stand up and crouch. We continued to go through till we hit one of these big, huge halls, and he wanted to have us experience complete darkness. So we had to kind of hide our helmets that glowed, turn off the lamps, and we experienced what he thought was really great, complete darkness. Then after that, he discovered that we were lost. And we kept trying to find ways to get out. There were all these little systems and cave tunnels, and they went here and there and everywhere. And there were other people in the cave. There were other groups that were coming through. It was kind of, I guess, a famous place. Anyway, we were in there for 8 hours. We were lost. This couple-hour trip turned into an 8-hour nightmare. Now, I want to tell you that every time we saw someone who could give us clues about how to get out of the cave, we paid serious attention to those people. It's like, okay, you know how to get out of the cave? And we would look for all the clues. So anytime we hit an intersection or a place where one went one way and another and the other, we looked for some kind of etchings. I mean, we really searched hard. Anyway, this isn't a true story, but it's also an analogy, I think, for the spiritual life, is that when we realized we're in a cave, we're in darkness. When we realize what our true human condition has become, not that it was originally made that way, but what it has become. And for the spiritual life then is to find these people who've gotten out of the cave and to really ask them, how'd you do it? Which way do we go? What's your method? To really sit down with them. I think that Ann Voskamp is one of those people. And mystics in the past had to, show their credentials, their bona fides, by saying that they had visions. And that was a big one. Or some kind of other spiritual, supernatural manifestation. But Ann's bona fides, her credentials, are the horrible suffering that she went through in her life and the anxiety that it became, the self-destruction, the cutting that it became, and how this method of giving thanks, or Eucharisteo, has turned into a way to get out of the cave. So what I want to start out with is just to check in with you on your journaling and to see what kind of effect it's had. How are you all doing with your journaling? And have you begun to notice any differences that this method has worked in your life, in your spiritual life? Well, it is your life. All of our life is spiritual. Terry, you're.
I can say that I had started this before this book in another way. And I'm not an expert by any means to even talk about it or even to mention what I've done. But what I have noticed, that's what your question was, is that I am finding that I'm paying much closer attention to the smaller things, to the details. But I'm also, the thing that's mind-blowing to me, and I have one directly connected to you, Father Dave, It's the connections that they're just all over the place, and it is overwhelming, but it is also beautiful and gives me great joy when I stop and realize what those connections are. Now, do you want me to tell you about the connection to you, or do you want me to wait?
I'm curious.
Okay. I don't know about anybody else. I was, as a lot of you know, my house has been under not destruction. It's not under destruction at all. It's construction. That's the word. For a couple of years now. Helen knows very well. But anyway, I've been going through things and trying to, my whole goal in this was not to throw things away until I realized I needed to throw it away. And I've thrown a lot away. Don't ask John, but I have. I mean, he doesn't think I have, but I have. What I found recently were some, I know I had these, but I didn't know where they were, but they were all together, different devotional books, some from Christ Episcopal Church, some from Forward Day by Day. I mean, specific periods like Lent or Advent or another one. Well, in 2006, we received one of those Advent devotional books from the Seminary of the Southwest. And I was so excited when I discovered it just like in October, late September. And I opened it up. I had dog-eared a page because I remember really liking this Advent devotional book from 2006 from the seminary. And as I was opening it, trying to remember what were the ones and why did it speak to me then and would it speak to me now? One of the pages was dog-eared, which I don't do. I'm a former librarian. You don't mess up books. But in this case, I did. And opening it up to that page, I was like, oh, I remember this. And it was about clutter and decluttering, and I'd underlined things. And I thought to myself, who wrote this? And it was Father Dave. And I was just blown away because I didn't know you. I didn't know of you then. And I just thought, wow, what a connection that is. And that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's neat. Okay. And that devotion was inspired by my wife's work as a personal organizer. So
Well, I'm calling her tomorrow.
yeah, and the spirituality of that
I
whole
need
thing.
your number too.
Yeah, this is not an ad for her. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, and that's I think that is part of that spirituality of just connecting things. And a friend of mine, John Lewis, just a brilliant guy, and he has a ministry that he's been teaching, particularly to laity in the Episcopal Church down in San Antonio and other places, and it's called the St. Benedict's Workshop. But he tries to help people to see how the mundane things in their lives rhyme with what is going on in the Bible. And he goes by a particular form of spirituality called Merkaba spirituality from Judaism, where they looked for how things on earth reflected things in heaven. And it's kind of like in the Lord's Prayer that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we look for ways that we can see the rhyming occurring. So yeah, connections are big. How about some of the rest of you with your journaling and finding differences?
Well, I'll have to agree with Carrie. Mine is just the mundane, just every day. And now since I'm so confined, to home and just getting out, some driving, but I find that little things I've got a book to read, or I've had a friend that I called, or maybe I enjoyed a certain thing at lunch. It's just everyday things, and I'm enjoying my home. So it's just everything.
Yeah.
I become more mindful of the things around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not very good at journaling, I have to admit. I started, but I'm not very far along.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a lifetime of starting journals and just not keeping them going. So I've been pretty bad at journaling myself, but keeping a list of the blessings, that's been kind of neat. I'm up to 100 now, so I'm not blazing any I'm not setting any land speed records here.
Well,
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead, Nancy. Yeah.
Well, Thanksgiving, my daughter and son-in-law were here. He's a retired pastor.
Oh.
And he had read the book years ago. And he was asking me how I was doing making my list. And I was telling him not that well. And he said, well, I can sit here and I can say, well, I'm thankful for the air conditioning. I'm thankful for this. And I thought, well, you know, that is really, to me, the mundane. I was looking for something that was,
Yeah.
Nope.
I don't know what, I don't know how to explain it, but I never thought of these little things that are so obvious to me. I'm not seeing them. I want to see the squirrel running along the yard, hiding his nuts for the winter and things like that.
Well, that's
Yeah.
That's why I'm not very far along.
Yeah, and I remember one of the first weeks when Doug shared that, you know, just waking up in bed without getting out of bed, we can name a number of things. And that was a real help to me, a kind of a challenge that, yeah, it's all around us. Anybody else? How's it going with your journaling?
Well, I'm enjoying doing it. I know this morning I tried to take a walk mornings early, and a lot of times I like to pray. Then it's kind of a maybe not a very introspective all the time, but a time to be praising God. And I was just thinking how much my outlook of life does depend on how good or well my body feels. And I guess I'm contrasting that a lot right now because my brother, who has bone cancer, is suffering so much right now.
Yeah.
And so this book has meant a lot to me, really.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I noticed one thing last night. My history since Desert Storm is I have not slept very well at night. And I've really struggled with waking up and then trying to get back to sleep for years and years. And last night I actually started counting things I could be thankful for and fell asleep. So I don't know that it's going to happen all the time, but it's on my list to keep on experimenting with. Well, just encourage everybody, continue on with it. This is I think it's an amazingly simple practice that's something that everybody can do. And she found the way out of a cave. So I think it may not be everybody's path out of the cave, but at least I think it's worth thinking about because she did find such an effect. And it really comes into the last chapter. But before we get to the last chapter, just in your readings this week, did anybody have anything that really stuck out in, say, chapter 10, the chapter on empty in order to fill?
There was one that really struck me. It was about being grateful, gratitude for really bad things. And there was something that struck me about the old man with the foul breath with his hand on and then there were 2 or 3 other things equally as terrifying. And that has just been in my mind all week as, coming as what were the others? Can you pull that up? There were about 3 things that were really bad, and that was probably the most graphic.
Yeah, that was a very graphic one. That certainly got my anxieties up. And she's going to talk about it in the video today, so that may be a good segue. Does anybody else have anything that really stuck out to them from the reading?
Well, I read the comments this week about, what people said about her book.
Yeah.
And the last one is from Allison Pittman, which I do not know who that is, but she said 1,000 Gifts reads like a series of prize-winning photographs, bringing the reader to stop and marvel at the depth and detail, the light and the shadow of all these scattered moments in life. Anne Voskamp tells the story behind the image in memorable, mesmerizing prose. And I think that sums up exactly what she's doing. I love that, the way she's phrased it. I couldn't have put it that way, but I felt that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like a snapshot, her writing. So it's not particularly poetry or prose, but it is this very graphic description that pulls you in. You see an image.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Not everybody's cup of tea, but I find it's very, very helpful. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Valerie.
Okay, well, there are a lot of things I love, but there was a part where she's talking about Eucharisteo, giving thanks, and she says, I am blessed, I can bless, imagine, I could let him make me the gift, I could be the joy. And I think that is a lot of times we don't think about maybe being the joy and being the gift to others, but we can be.
Yeah. And in the study guide, there's an introduction to this lesson, and she uses the image, or whoever put together the study guide uses the image of water. And they talk about how in the Mediterranean, the moisture comes up off the water, forms into a cloud that goes to Mount Hermon, comes down as precipitation, then turns into snow, and then the snow melts and it runs into the Jordan River, and then comes into the Sea of Galilee that's full of life and feeds people. And then it moves further, and its final destination is the Dead Sea. And she uses that as an image of how everything in nature is meant to be a receiving in order to then turn around and give. And the only place where there is no further giving is the Dead Sea, where things can't live anymore. And it's a toxic environment. So she uses that as the nature example of how our lives are to be lived, to receive the gift. And she says the gifts are always meant to be given. So we keep it for a little while and then we pass it on. And that's that movement. For those of you into theology and Greek words, the word perichoresis is the one that is the concept of the Trinity, that each person of the Trinity empties themselves in order to be filled again with agape love, which then it's like the swirl. That's why it uses choresis is the root word, which we get from choreography or dancing. So it's this movement, this swirl of emptying to give, empty, give, empty, give. And that is the essence of this relationship that is the Trinity. And it continues to swirl out. So if we look for how we are invited to be happy and find ultimate meaning in our lives, is to follow that pattern. We receive and empty by giving. Okay, so let's try. If my computer will let me, just locked up on me. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So my screen just froze on me. Can you all see me at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I have me like frozen, and my mouse is not even working. So we're gonna have to just give it a few moments, and we're gonna talk rather than watch this video because my computer doesn't like me. So, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the concepts that were in that chapter, and we're also going to take a look at chapter 11, because chapter 11 I think just was kind of mind-blowing. And I'm going to have to ask you to chime in with me just to assure me that I haven't lost you. So I haven't lost you yet, is that right?
No.
No, you're still with me.
You're
Everybody else?
just perfect.
I can see you, but you're not moving. But we can
That's
hear
right.
you.
Oh, now you froze. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, he's frozen.
He may have to reboot.
Can you message maybe? I don't know if he can receive that or not.
You have his email or his text message. Text message or internal. Okay.
And I was wondering if someone else could show the video, because he sent the link to a lot of people, right? And it says up
I
here.
thought it was just for that one.
Because it says something about it says enter host key to claim host. So I don't know if someone else could be the host or not.
I wouldn't know how to do this.
Well, I have an iPad, and for me, that makes it kind of hard, but.
Yeah.
Susan, can you do it? You're muted.
No, I'd have to have the code. I don't have the code.
Okay.
He'll be back in a second.
He'll be back.
Carrie, did you thaw from church? There he is.
Did what?
Did you thaw?
There he is.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't this fun?
Oh, it's way fun.
Oh yeah, I think Doug and Harriet got bounced off last week towards the end.
That's right. That was just so weird.
Yeah, is this a Salado thing? Because we're moved into Salado now, so.
Oh, you are? Oh, I bet it may be. So I hear you're not far from us.
No, we're on Hester Way, so probably not far at all.
Ooh, we can haunt you.
Yes, you can. And I'll be over for dinner. Okay. Did I just lose everybody again?
No.
There, my screen went off and then back on. This is scary stuff.
That probably is the Salado.
I'm not feeling confident right now with Zoom. Shall we try to watch the video?
Sure.
We can try.
We will try. So, can you see something on the screen? Oh no, wait a minute.
Not yet.
Okay, here we go. Okay, now can you see anything on the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Session 5,
There we go.
empty to fill.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yes.
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 By Thursday morning, I flip pancakes, and the phone rings. The youth pastor. He wonders if I'm interested in serving with our youth group for a weekend on the streets of Toronto. I remember the streets of Toronto. My first panic attack was on those streets. A city that just choked me tight. I was then the age of many of the kids and youth I'd be chaperoning now. Could I go back, live full in those same streets, now be full of His grace? Was this the way I might bless? And as any opportunity we're given to let the fullness of grace flow on, the opportunity we always should take. The call seems from God, and I say yes. Yes, this is my place, open-handed. Who could have known how grace would fall? And on whom? The youth group walks down Yonge Street, Toronto's main drag, toward the Yonge Street Mission. A bit of November stealing into an October night. A gray chill is creeping up the wet pavement. Cars hiss by in thickening twilight. It's going to be a long night out here. A long night doing what we've come to do. To bless Christ in the other. But I still almost miss Him standing there in the shadows. A wild mane of graying hair. Back to me, in front of the mission's front entrance. I'm focused on the kids, trying to ignore the cold. It's easy to forget the how of happiness, to shift the focus and to forget to let the stream flow on. And it's him, his tribe we've come to bless, be blessed by. Before I reach the entrance of the mission, the bulk of a man, he steps out in front of me, walks toward our cluster of kids on the street. His buddy stays in the shadows, swigging long out of a 1-liter pop bottle. Something inside tightens, twists hard. I'm a few steps behind this bulk of back and tangled hair when I see the man raise his hands to his face. He pulls down a mask. He's pulling down a mask, walking into the center of our youth group. I walk faster. My blood courses fast, and I try to remember. Trust. No matter what unfolds here, he is always good, and we are always loved. Let go. Then the man rips the mask from his face, and the blade of his howl slashes at us, all stiffened to the spot here. Cuss words flying, he yells out, "I'm wearing the mask to mask my feelings." He shakes the painted rubber face in his hand. I'm masking the real me. Know what I mean? The heart jolts. I've never heard the whole human condition spoken so baldly and from the unexpected lips, and I want to raise a hand to my own face, see if I can peel off mine. How do broken hearts mend? Do some hearts heal all wrong? What do we make of a world that needs remaking? There's only one crossbeam that promises a whole new world. Only one beam to line a heart up straight again. One carpenter who can repair a torn apart heart. If I'm moved, but choose not to respond, won't my heart soon harden, unable to respond? When we're touched, we must reach out, or soon we stiffen, and nothing touches us, and we feel nothing. Christian hands, they never clasp, and God doesn't give gifts for gain, because a gift never stops being a gift. It's always meant to be given. When we're grateful for his gifts, we give the gifts away, because a gift never stops being a gift. How will the world change if we, through Christ, do not become its change? The night air on Yonge Street fills with this guttural moan, this pitched wail. He's crying, sobbing. Bared, he writhes, storms past me, a flurry of tears, hair, hands. A chaperone from our group calls softly after him, "Jesus loves you." He stops. Half turning, he tries to steady his voice between the racking of sadness, tries to find the face that went with that voice. Yeah, he does. He loves you too, lady. When the staff from the mission and our drivers arrive, our group is quieted, shaken. They direct us to enter the mission, and at the door, there he is, mask still in hand. He is unfinished business. His eyes dart, desperate, driven. But there's more to the story, lines he's got wrong, parts we haven't understood. "Hey, I'm sorry, okay?" the man bellows. "I've got issues, you know what I mean? I'm like bipolar." His buddy spews his drink, mocking. "You're not bipolar." "Hey, I messed up, man. Look at me." He steps into the company of young people. Some look away. "Look at me!" His rage shakes us. His nose is crooked, busted up somewhere, healed all wrong. His mouth clings to a few brown teeth. Maybe he's my age. "Fried my brain on crack, know what I mean? Got a pacemaker in here." He pounds his chest. "OD'd just down there." He waves his hand towards a side street. It took them 5 hours to find me. Don't do crack, know what I mean? His eyes are fiery, searching the faces of these country kids. Don't get messed up like I did. Love your mom and dad because they love you. Know what I mean? He's choking back emotion. So am I. I wonder where they are, his parents, if they know he's here like this, if they care that he's in all this strangling torture. I care. I think I do. What do you do with all this grizzled pain? He rummages in his duffel bag looking for something. The kids, they all search each other's eyes. Nobody knows what comes next in a night, a life, unscripted. He straightens. He has something in his hand. He shoves it at Erica. It's a dog-eared Bible. A Gideon Bible. Read Romans 7-8. He shakes his finger at the grubby cover. I can hardly hear over the traffic, the rumble of the city. Louder, so they hear you. Then comes Erica's voice, calmed by these words she knows and the person in them. I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do. And a low bass throbs. It's his voice. He's mumbling the words from memory. His eyes penetrating, his hands keeping beat with each word Erica reads. But what I hate, I do. I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. He slurs some of the words, stumbles. Erica reads on, and he marks each word with a swaying hand, his voice echoing hers. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. He's rocking his whole body to the cadence of ancient words, this cry that his flesh weeps. He turns my way, and I look into tearing eyes, his begging eyes. What a wretched man I am. I know these last lines of the chapter, for they are mine too, and I speak them with all of us here. Who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Grace. The mission worker speaks to him in low tones. Our group spills past and into the mission, escapes. He holds open the door. I'm the last one to trickle by. I can't walk by him without looking into him. I turn, and we are face to face. His eyes implore, and his gravelly voice begs. Did I get it right this time? And I'm busted open. Do I do any of the good I long to do? Did I bless? Am I a blessing? I speak Eucharisteo, the only words I can muster. Thank you. I say the words slowly, hope they soak into his pores. Broken man who yearns to bless. And I am him, and he is me. And behind the masks, we are all the same. On Yonge Street, we enact Eucharisteo. On a Toronto street corner, he has begged for grace. The grace to be the blessing. I'd been keeping a gratitude journal of more than 1,000 gifts, and yet I hadn't understood until that night on Yonge Street this one life-changing fact. I can be the gift. I am blessed. I can bless. This is happiness. Imagine, I could let him make me the gift. You could let him make you the gift. You could be the joy. This is one of God's miracles too. the taking of a life and making that life a blessing. Liturgy, it has its roots in the Greek word liturgia, meaning public work or public servant. This life of work, it is itself public work, a public serving, and thus, if done unto God, even what seems like mundane work, it can become the living liturgy of the Last Supper. You could become the blessing, live the liturgy. When service, well, is unto people, the bones grow weary, the frustration.
Okay, since it was out of sync, I decided to pull the plug on that because she actually got us to the point where I think the real message of that clip was. And if you want to watch the whole thing, you've got permission to do so. And if you can't remember how to do it, just send me an email or a text and I'll talk you through it. What kind of reactions do you have to what she shared in the video and that kind of scary, disturbing story on Yonge Street in Toronto?
I think anytime you begin to share yourself, period, it's scary. And I think it's an example of fear before realizing that there's no reason for the fear. I mean, I realize that we're not walking on the streets and we're not doing, at least some of us are not. And yet it kind of, it surmises what we do is we allow the anticipation of giving of ourselves to be so fearful that we might not. And so she was brought to a position where she had to confront it herself. And it seemed like that from there, things changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the real significant part of the story is when she was called by that youth pastor, her initial reaction was that fear you talk about here. It was just, she remembered when she'd had that anxiety attack when she was in Toronto and on those streets. And so by faith, she went forward, even though she was kind of apprehensive. And it turned into this amazing encounter with God's grace in the most unlikely person that she could have probably ever imagined. And I'm curious about, from all of you, probably every one of you has faced some fear in your own lives. And have you experienced something that's been connecting to God and to healing that when you've moved through it? Is someone speaking that we're missing?
I think it must be a TV somewhere in another room somewhere.
Okay. So something else, yeah.
I think that I'm just going to say, I think I can speak for probably a lot of people in the sense that fear, unfortunately, has been something that I have to deal with a lot. And yet at the same time, realizing how amazing is when I put my trust in God, how He not only helps me through it, but oh my gosh, I'm surprised at how wonderful it can be when we do trust Him. So the reality is I think all of us are fearful. I have to make myself trust in Him, believe that He is going to work. And it's amazing how wonderful how much He loves us. That's just really about what it is. It's love.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, Harry. Have any of you had experiences that you want to share? Moving against the fear?
I'll share one that was I guess you could say a physical fear I mean, I think there are all sorts of fears that we go through or that I go through. This one happened years ago and I didn't realize it until I heard somebody talk about something that happened to them. And anyway, John and I were we hadn't been married just very, very long, but we were in we were living in Waco. He was at Baylor. I was working at Baylor. He was a graduate student and teaching there. And so we had one car and we lived very close to campus because we wanted to be able, one of us probably was going to have to walk at some point, either to work or to get back home. And so it was a delightful existence in a lot of ways. But one night, I was home alone and of course had the door locked because I always lock my doors. Everybody in my family knows that because I lock them out. But there was a bang on the door and I wasn't expecting anybody. And so I just sat very quietly and didn't hope nobody would know I was in there and they just go away. And whoever it was banged again and I'm still in there. I'm actually praying to help me through this and to keep me safe. And then the oddest thing happened. They banged on the door again and said, this is almost funny, and it wasn't at the time, but it is now, give me my deodorant. And I wanted to say, excuse me, but I thought then they'll know I'm in here. And maybe that was a ploy to get me to say, I don't have your deodorant, go away. But then they finally, whoever it was, left. And then at some point, John came home, and of course, I'm just almost in tears telling him about all this. And but because I am a very cautious person by nature, I called the police to tell them. And they came and reported, or they came and talked to me, and they said that's when I found out we were living in one of the highest crime rate areas in Texas. And it was then, it's not now. It's a much a different area now, but they said probably somebody came by and that was probably what was going on, you know. I mean, that could have been, but anyway, so that was that. But it just really put the fear in me. Well, I mean, it was over then, but then years later, and y'all are going to think, maybe some of you will think this is nutty and some won't, but I heard a woman telling about a story when she was home by herself and a similar thing happened, although I don't think they were looking for deodorant. I don't know what they were doing. I think they were actually trying to break into her house. And she said she just prayed so hard that she visually saw angels surrounding her door outside. It was like a wall or a seal of protection. And I could see that. It really resonated with me for her to say that. And she was sharing it, didn't know about my experience, but I really felt like maybe that's what happened to me. And it was a beautiful feeling. And I think of that often and of her. I don't have contact with her anymore. She's just someone I knew as an acquaintance, but her story will always be powerful to me.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Yeah, that when the focus is on ourselves, we get very afraid. But when the focus can change to focus on God in prayer, then we realize we are being held, that we are protected. Anybody else? Well, yes, go ahead, Susan.
Well, like if there's something that I need to do or I'm concerned about and I get really fearful, it was pointed out to me that when I do that is when I'm thinking that there's something I've got to do, that I have to take care of. And I feel less than or unable to, or questioning my ability to be able to handle whatever the problem is. But then if I can let go of that and give that to God, just pray for even sometimes the courage to even believe in Him, that And then I can understand that the job isn't mine to do. And when I do that, when I realize that, then that fear just evaporates. Just that it's not my job, so there's no reason for me to be concerned.
Yeah,
It goes away.
that's a great reminder. It's whatever we can do to make sure that we're not at the center, that it's not our job to do, it's not about us, it's not, but to realize it's about God and to move forward with without as much fear. I know it's easy to say on a Sunday morning, but certainly something that we work through towards in spiritual practices. And I think this giving of thanks really works well because it's bombarding the person with all these gifts and reminders that God really loves us. Henry Nouwen said that the hardest task is to move from that point where we believe in our heads that God loves us to where we can move to our heart and realize that God loves me. And he says that's the work of a lifetime, is to move to the point where it's no longer theoretical about God loving all of us, which I think we all probably agree with. But when we get to the point where we recognize that God loves me, that's amazing.
Well, collecting all this list that we're writing, you know, it's like evidence. It's collecting evidence.
Yeah.
And I have tons of evidence that
Yeah.
I fall short.
Yep.
And then I have tons of evidence that God never, ever falls short.
Yep.
And you know, if I can focus on that instead of my failure, focus on God's success, which is what that gratitude list or whatever you know is, it works.
It does. Yeah.
It does.
I wish we had, well, first of all, I wish that my video hadn't cut off and cut into our time. But I wish we had more time to really focus and seep in this book. I kind of think I want to go through it every so often, like around Thanksgiving season. It just seems like a perfect book that each time we go through it, it's going to just take us to a new level. My fear is I'm going to just forget about it after the study's over, which is my practice. I do forget things once it's no longer something I have to do. I am so grateful that I had to do this. And I'm not saying anybody put a gun to my head, but I agreed to teach it. And I hadn't read it yet. I was just going on the basis that Harriet and Doug said it was a good book. And I believe that. And I'm so glad. So Harriet and Doug, thank you so much.
Yes.
And thank you all, in this class, because it's formed this group to be together that moves something from a nice to read book into something that's essential to read. And that's what really did the trick for me. I tend to pick out the most boring books, and I'm so glad that there are other people out there who have better taste than me in books and can pick out something like this. So thank you so much. I do want to say a word in closing about where we're going next for Adult Forum. I've gathered together all the input from last week and shared it with Janice, and then she came up with kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Christmas through our culture and through our sacred and secular kind of things to begin to see those connections with God. So next week, I'm going to be teaching for the Iona School for Ministry, and I won't be able to be with you, but Carrie's going to lead. And Carrie, you want to just give us a little snippet of what you're going to share or discuss? I think you're on mute.
Won't that be fun? We'll all be on mute and we're going to talk about our favorite Christmas movies. But we're going to talk about any Christmas movie you want to talk about that's one of your favorites and try to think about how you see God in it. Or we could take this study into it and see what maybe those characters, if we were one of those characters, what we would be grateful for that happens to them. But how basically do we just see, how do we see them living their lives, even though it may not be a Christian movie per se? How do you see what in that movie or what in their characters or in what happens, where do you see Christ among that, or in that, or what is special about it that can help you? What lesson can you learn from it in that way? So I've really been thinking about my favorite Christmas movies, and that's the hard part. I have more than one. And
Yeah.
hopefully you all do too.
So yeah, if you can share with Carrie some of the favorite movies, and also bring that to the discussion for next week. The following weeks in Advent, then I'll host. And the first week we're going to talk about music. So Christmassy music, both sacred and what we consider secular, and what that does in terms of that connection to God for us in some of these songs. And then the last week, and Flo, this is for you. It's going to be Christmas stories. So I need to get that story that you brought up last week. And I think, Helen, you knew about it as well, maybe, or you've got other stories. But anyway, or Valerie, that's it. Yeah. So I'm going to need a little bit of help with that. And of course, we'll have to, of course, look at Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol a little bit. So think of your favorite stories. The more secular, the better for us to think about them spiritually and theologically. Okay? So I think it'll be a great, thankful for all your input. Some of the other input was also amazing and are things that are going to go on the consideration for future things too. So thank you everyone for giving ideas. So as we close, I'm going to go back to that how we started with page 218, and I'm going to just read that again. This writing a kind of a poem from Teresa of Avila that I think encapsulates a lot of what Ann Voskamp has experienced. That she went from finding God to be a source of fear and problem to enjoyment. And I find that spiritual view so appealing. So, and again, in the words of Teresa of Avila, just these two words he spoke changed my life. Enjoy me. What a burden I thought I was to carry, a crucifix as did he. Love once said to me, I know a song. Would you like to hear it? And laughter came from every brick in the street and from every pore in the sky. After a night of prayers, he changed my life when he sang, Enjoy me. And this God who loves and is love and wants us in relationship and is relationship woos us into enjoying him. So thank you all for your time in these discussions and everything you brought to it. See you in 2 weeks, and Carrie, we'll see you next week. So God's blessings on you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.